Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I am here in Los Angeles and it's very early. We're not on fire yet, but there are fires in California. And I'm saying this because today it's a very interesting topic that we're going to explore with some of my friends and colleagues. Climate change is real. And mental health is real. Now, when I say that, I'm saying it because from an individual's perspective, through this COVID crisis that we're going through, COVID-19, our highlight has been that we all are experiencing loneliness, depression, and some of us want to terminate our own lives, and that results in suicide. That notion. So obviously recently, for those in India, you have seen that even Bollywood actors such as Sushant Singh Rajput has ended his life in a tragic way. But that's everywhere in the world. You see the statistics before COVID-19 were every 40 seconds someone dies by suicide. So that's a very, very, it's heavy. It's heavy to know that. So today we're going to explore, is our mental health connected to the planet's well-being? And we're exploring that in ways because it's a difficult dialogue to have. It's a taboo to talk about mental health. It's a taboo to talk about suicide. And it's a taboo these days to talk about climate change and thinking that it's separate from who we are. So I hope you enjoy this very, very difficult dialogue, and I hope that we are able to shed some light to deep questions of who we are in the world. And it's a pleasure of me. I know it's early, but I'm waking up to do this because I believe it's important. Today in the US, it's the end of Suicide Prevention Week. So these are grains and seeds to put in our minds to see how we can be really active in our communities. So thank you for that, and please enjoy this panel that I'm moderating for you all. Today, we're bringing this conversation to all of you from TVE. TVE is a UK registered charity. It's founded by the United Nations Environment Programme, WWF UK, and the Central Television in 1984 in the UK. So they have been working over years to support the narrative of climate change and today the climate crisis through storytelling and facilitating film to millions of people worldwide with beautiful storytelling. And the other part of this dialogue today is brought to us by Difficult Dialogues, which is an Indian forum that examines issues of contemporary relevance in South Asia, specifically supporting the youth and youth empowerment in India. So I love them very much, and they're founded by a very dear friend of mine, Serena Narula, who has always been very supportive of the work that I've been doing in the humanitarian world for years. So they're bringing us together today. And why I wanted to focus on the topic, which is our mental health connected to the planet's well-being? And if it is, how is it connected? Because I believe that obviously mental health has now become the number one priority today. After COVID, during COVID, we're still in the maturation phase of what this crisis is actually doing to us as human beings mentally, but also in our own sustainability. How are we going to live? What is the environment going to be like? And so I wanted to bring all of these questions in because, as well as us being in a climate crisis, we have this inner crisis. So that's the spectrum of where I want to go. I'm going to start just with Deepak, because I love the article that you wrote, I think it was last Sunday, with Rudolf Tanzi about the planetary biome. And I kind of want to dive into this very, very quickly and deep. So I believe that you can give us a structure that then we can flow with and take this conversation to places where we've never gone before. Because I really believe that if we're triggered into being truly awakened to our own mental health, that then pushes us and triggers us into our environmental well-being, then I think we might have a chance of creating a beautiful world for the future. So please, Deepak, if you could just slow.
So when people look for life on other planets, exoplanets, outside our solar system or within our solar system, say Mars, what they're looking for is a biosphere that's conducive to life. The biosphere, of course, includes the atmosphere, the air that we breathe, but it also includes what is happening in the Earth itself, because the Earth is part of the biosphere. You think of the atmosphere as part of the biosphere, and we, our physical bodies, are the recycling of that biosphere that we call planet Earth. Anyway, the entire periodic table is in the Earth, in the soil. Atoms become molecules, and molecules can organize themselves into DNA, and DNA is the basis of all existence. So if you go underneath the rainforest in Amazon or in the soil, underneath the surface, and take a teaspoon of soil out, you'll find all the genetic information that is necessary for life on our planet. All the genetic information is in the soil. This genetic information includes microbial genes, which means bacterial genes, but also viral genes. The viral genes are called the virome, virome. And then there are fungal genes that they are called the mycome. But together, the mycome, the virome, and the microbiome is the entire genetic information on this planet. So from these genes, which are present in microorganisms, you get plants, the information that is needed to create plants. And from the plants, of course, animals eat plants. Plants capture energy from the sun directly, photons, and convert it into energy. So plants converted the energy, we know photosynthesis, but the life of a plant is determined by the biome, because that's the genetic information of the planet. And the animals eat plants, and some animals eat other animals, but ultimately we're all consuming photons from the sun, and we're converting that into energy, and we're creating, through the genetic biome of the planet, we are creating our biology. Not only our biology, but the biology of plants, animals, primates, fungi, bacteria, protozoa, anything that's living. And of course, these living organisms then have perceptual apparatus through which they experience the universe. So ultimately, the story of the universe is in an entangled biome. We are ruining that entangled biome with climate change. So once there's climate change, then there is inflammation. And climate change has many causes, but also industrial food production, poison in the food chain, antibiotics, steroids, hormones, petroleum products, because in order to create manufactured food, you need to preserve it, and the preservative is petroleum. Same thing that was used in the killing fields of Vietnam. So you're putting it in your body, you're killing life of the microorganisms that are responsible for your life and the life of every other organism in our planet. So climate change, changing weather patterns, eco-destruction, extinction of species, ultimately other things, social injustice, economic injustice, exploitation of the poor, corporate special interest groups, militarism, all of that is the combination of what's happening to our planet. But in the long term, unless we address the context in which these mutations occur and these diseases, then we won't have a solution. Right now, this situation is so serious that we're not looking at the planetary biome. It's so serious that if we don't address it in its totality, the total context, I fear we are risking extinction of the human species, not of other life forms, by the way. According to cultural anthropologists, if insects disappeared from our planet, life would cease in 5 years. If humans disappeared from our planet, life would flourish in 5 years. So as far as the biosphere is concerned, the human species may be an interesting experiment that went wrong. That's the answer that I can give.
No, but this is very interesting. Thank you, Deepak, because I think that really sets the tone to this conversation and why it's so important. We have a climate crisis, and yet also on an individual level, our inflammation, there have been studies, and we can talk about that as well, that inflammation is linked to chronic stress, and stress is linked to depression and loneliness, and therefore the crisis that we're in, which is suicide. We're addressing this. It's Suicide Awareness Month. So it's really interesting. And I want to go to Poonacha and Robert, because Robert's a new friend of ours. He's part of our new community. He's just birthed this incredible podcast called The Earth Locker. And as well as being a natural storyteller, like myself, we're actors, but he's also feels and recognizing the responsibility of what it is to change the narrative very quickly and in actionable items. And Poonacha here, obviously, our warrior monk, all about resilience, all about how do we build resilience so that we can really adapt to the environment. But how do we do that in a way that the environment and us become one, right? So, Poonacha, let's start with Poonacha. How do you feel that we can find an active solution that integrates everything, that resilience becomes one for tackling this?
Thank you, Gabriela. First of all, I'm really delighted to have this conversation. This conversation got me thinking this morning. So I want to kind of do a reflection more than anything else, right? Today, when you talk about climate change, typically we have headlines. I went to the NASA Global Climate Change website this morning, and there's articles, declining Arctic sea ice. And both the extent and thickness of the Arctic Sea has declined rapidly over the last decades. We know that, right? And look at the other headline, it says, decreased snow cover. Satellite observations reveal the amount of spring snow cover in the Northern Hemisphere has decreased. What is interesting is that all this is really good, but what does it do to me? Right? So the question is that we don't talk about is that what's in it for me? How does it change my life materially? So here is what let's say if I tell you the story, you guys are storytellers. I come from a small part of India called Coorg. And if I tell you if the river Kaveri, which is a source of water for south of India, dries up, that the people in Malibu or Silicon Valley are going to be mentally affected. Is it possible? Which I don't know. It's called the butterfly effect, right? Now imagine if the river Kaveri dries up, which is so far away in India, south of India, provides water to the Silicon Valley of India, which is Bangalore. Now let's say I'm not getting water in Bangalore. My call center person can't take a shower. My software engineer is stressed and anxious. And let's say they're supporting this conversation on the internet in the support center. They're not able to do their jobs. And if you are calling in for help on a helpline, you're going to be stressed. So what I'm saying is that there are these discrete events happening all over the world, but we're all connected. So what I'm suggesting is that what we need to look at, what Deepak said, is an operating system model. If we have to look at the operating system, the planetary operating system, the virome, the mycome, the microbiome, that's one aspect of it, right? But then let's look at the Stockholm resilience model, right? They talk about the biosphere integrity, which is the genetic diversity and the functional diversity. How do you look at that? the climate change, different parameters, the stratospheric ozone depletion, atmospheric aerosol loading, the ocean acidification. All these things are being done in islands of automation, right?
Yeah.
People are all doing these different things. What we need to do is bring it all together into an operating system and a model where people get real-time feedback, right? If I'm not feeling well, I get immediate feedback. So I need, okay, my God, this is how the world, the planet is trending right now. It's like a weather report. What's a planetary report? And how is it going to impact me today, right? And that's really what is missing. So all this different information has to come together. Then it has to lead to a behavior change, right? So climate change conversation and isolation is not sufficient if it does not lead to behavior change. If I need to lead to behavior change, I need to understand what's a person's motivation. I need to understand his or her ability, and then I need to trigger the behavior. So one of the things which I'm excited about is to really take what Deepak is talking about, a planetary biome, and then let's convert that into a planetary operating system, and then be able to track it with real-time actionable data. So anybody living in Mumbai or in Seoul or in Los Angeles, they get real-time feedback. So where their actions on a daily basis can be triggered and managed. So awareness is key to transformation. Just publishing data is not going to work. Like Deepak can tell you, no amount of cigarette smoking is injurious to health is going to get people to stop smoking.
Yeah, that's great. That's so interesting. I love that, because I think you're right. I mean, I always need to be moved into action. Like, for example, you know, we talk about Suicide Prevention Month. Every 42nd, someone dies by suicide. But are we really moved by that number until it becomes personal? And so, Rob, just feel free to, what do you think the narrative, what do you think we need to do? You know you're connecting to your audience differently. You know that there's a responsibility. What do you think we need to do more that, for example, we had that conversation this morning, like, hey, you went to the grocery store and it was a bulk, sustainable store, and you're like so happy, and you need to transmit the happiness of being enchanted by this world, meaning you want to save the world, not meaning like a hero, but by just being responsible.
I think meditation was a big part of me arriving at this point and being very honored to be in a virtual room with all of you lovely people. Meditation, I think, brought to light a lot of the unconscious anxieties that I felt through day to day. And the one that we're referring to is the kind of low hum anxiety of just going into a shop, and these days, I try and sort of, like everybody, manage anxiety and manage compassion and manage everything that's going on. But sometimes you look at a store here, I'm in London here, and it feels like a future landfill because 90-something% of the stuff is not very upcyclable. I was listening to this this lovely podcast about the plastic mermaid, she's called. And she was talking about how, products, if they've been in the food chain, like a pack of crisps or whatever, anything that has any organic material in it cannot be reused because it's not safe. You can't put that back into the food supply chain. So these, you just go past thousands and thousands of shops full of plastic. So what we were talking about earlier on was having, I think, gone through the journey of, or be sort of at the start of the journey of meditation, has led me to confront some of the more unconscious anxieties that I had going on. And one of them was, what's my life costing to the planet on a daily basis? What am I using? What am I consuming that's going in a bin, that's going in a truck, so that I never have to think about it again? And to be honest, it was anxiety enough just to make the change, to start sort of reducing the cost of my life on the planet. And like today and yesterday, visiting, doing my shop in plastic-free supermarkets around London, which is a big city privilege. It's not something that everybody has the privilege of access to. I mean, I know they speak about food deserts in places like USA where, there's nothing of any nutrition for miles and miles and miles around that you can get. No organic vegetables and nothing plastic free, so these are luxuries that hopefully, if we give lots of support to, they'll grow and spread quickly. Because the sort of, you know, for me, it rings so true what Deepak and Poonacha are saying, because everything, fixing the gut, fixing literally what's in us, fixes the planet. I really think. And we were talking about when we had Deepak, when we had you on the podcast a week and a half ago, we were talking about the variety in diet, essentially eating and consuming all of the manifestations of the photons, particles of light from the sun, and all of the colors that they manifest into. So having all of the colors of the rainbow in your diet, and essentially re-enriching the microbiome in order to re-enrich the nutrients of the planet, and so on and so forth. So I really think, like for me, it took 32 years and a fair whack of meditation before that to get to the place where I'm going, no, I'm going to instill some nice local changes in my own life and just be that, and stop just tolerating the thorn in the base of my foot. You know what I mean? And I think that's what modern living with convenience feels like. It feels like they've taken what sustains us and turned it into poison for the planet. And we've all gone, well, it's convenient. You know, we can get it delivered to our front door anytime we like, wrapped in 10 sheets of plastic, and go, well, I've had my dinner, throw it in the bin, don't think about it. But do you not think about it? Of course you do. You know, a part of you, the unconscious part of you, is thinking of it, and is thinking of it accumulatively. And it's terrifying, of course, through social media and places, and through brilliant charitable foundations and so on. We're seeing the effect. We have access to the images of the effect of what the degradation of our microbiome through convenience and the supply chain and everything is doing to the world. Giant plastic islands in the sea, the size of Texas, you know, of plastic that cannot be removed, that has been broken down to the same size as phytoplankton, you know. And it's really, really terrible, because we are the time which has brought this catastrophe on the little pale blue dot, this little pocket of air that we call planet Earth. And so, you know, I must say the level of satisfaction and smugness and just glowing benevolence that I feel for just spending a few days making a few small changes and removing plastic from my everyday life. So if I get my food and my cosmetics and my cleaning products and maybe my clothes, if I bought vintage, if I got everything down to sort of as net close to zero as I can possibly get, it just gives you such a surge of personal satisfaction, which replaces that low hum of anxiety that was there before, because you're not contributing to the apocalyptic disaster that we find ourselves in, you know? So that's kind of what was the beginning of the Earthlocker podcast, or that was part of it. And that was the sort of the beginning of a path that basically meant meeting you lovely people.
My first attempt is called, the working title, now I'm probably going to have to stick to it now that I'm announcing it, but it's My Mental Hygiene, a Toolkit to Human Kindness.
Yeah.
And why do I say that? Because like you just saying, Rob, is that, you know, when you experience some form of anxiety and you go through a trauma that 100% of the people go through trauma. I don't think anyone is spared from, whether it's own relationship with self, anxiety, etc., or world trauma, or trauma that's with a subject, object, whatever it is. So we all experience that. But once you dive into the abyss of what it is, and you go into the understanding that pain is an illusion through meditation, you start seeing things as they are. You start seeing the display of nature, of the display of consciousness. And then all of a sudden, by practicing and understanding and seeing things as they are through the practice that's rooted in meditation, spontaneously you become kind. You actually want to care. And you don't want to, you become care. You become the care that you were praying about when you were a kid. You want to save the world, or you become the world. You become the earth. The earth is in your womb. Well, I'm a woman, I can say that, yeah. But the earth becomes our womb, and I suppose, but then also for our soul, the earth becomes our mind and our way of being, and that's why, today it's so important to talk about mental health and climate crisis, because it is a crisis and it's one thing. It's not separate. Could we say, I mean, I know it's kind of strange, but could we say that the crisis of suicide today is the reflection of the world experiencing its own suicide, the planet, the environment?
Yeah, right now it seems like humanity is on a collective suicide mission out of ignorance of mental reality, out of ignorance of fundamental reality. So Rob said some very interesting things, and so did you, and the link, and so did Punarcha, all of you said some very insightful things. Here's the connection with mental health, a direct connection. We now know that an inflamed biology or an inflamed ecosystem, it doesn't matter, they're the same thing. The ecosystem is recycling through our body, and so the earth is recycling through our body. One of the problems in the reductionist sciences is that we think in terms of separation. You just said we are all one, but what does that mean? In science, we have the whole scientific methodology is based on subject-object splits. So I'm here, and then there is everything else. I'm Deepak, and then there's Rob, and there's Gabriella, there's Punarcha, there are trees, there are stars, there are bugs, there are bees, there are trees, and all of that, rocks. This is how it appears. This is our experience of perception, separation. So we are looking at the world through separations, through the separate perceptual experience that we have. So we call the universe and the planet the environment. But it's actually, the word itself is a word that says separation. As soon as you say me and the environment, separate. It's separate, right? But think about it. Meditation actually helps here. The earth is your body. It's recycling as your body. The atoms in your body are stardust. The rivers and waters and the ocean and the clouds and the rainbows and the puddles and the whirlpools and the rivulets, everything that is water on earth. We look, when we look at other planets for life, we look for water. So the ocean and the clouds are recycling as your circulation. The earth is recycling as your body. The air is recycling as your breath. The stars give you the atoms that made your body. But we say me and the world. Actually, it's, the world is our extended body. There's no difference. Just because there's a boundary here, which we call the skin, even that's semi-permeable. And everything that goes into your body goes through a hole, because you need to recycle. Whatever it goes into your body goes through a hole, right? Yeah. Even new life is produced the same way. So what is happening? The earth and the universe is recycling through you. So if you, as Rob said, if you're contaminated and polluted, obviously the earth will be contaminated and polluted too, and vice versa too. So every time you detox your body, mentally and physically, you're actually helping the earth repair itself. So we start with ourselves. Similarly, the whole universe is one unified process. And we are that process. And as human beings, which is amazing, that as human beings, we are so diabolical that we're risking our extinction. But as human beings, we also have the insight that actually we are one. So, we're a paradoxical species full of contradictions, divine and diabolical at the same time. But at this moment of crisis, we have to choose. Either we go the route of extinction, or we go the route of literally resurrection. We have to be born again as humans and as this planet.
Do you think there's, let's say, someone who's made their fortune in fossil fuels, take the Koch brothers, Gabriella and I mentioned earlier on, channel. You know, their lineage, their entire identity, their meaning, their sense of meaning and their sense of legacy is all now wrapped up with the very thing that's destroying the planet. And they probably have a financial interest in maintaining that illusion of separation in people's minds, or having that be the dominant sort of place that people identify with in their heads. It's like, how do you undo that? Because meaning is tricky, I think, because meaning can get all tangled up with ultimately the things that'll bring about our extinction, you know?
Rob, if you go to Washington, D.C., there's a whole culture there that's called lobbyists, lobbyism, which is a modern term for legalized corruption. For every congressman in Washington, there are 28 healthcare lobbyists that represent the pharmaceutical industry and biotechnology, etc. There are military lobbyists for the military industrial complex. And then there are lobbyists for every special interest groups. What's the world run by? It's run by influence peddlers, cronyism, corruption, influence peddling, and basically an ecosystem of gangsters. Now, every national leader in the world is a gangster or thug. I don't care what you might say. With few exceptions. I think Angela Merkel and maybe the Prime Minister of New Zealand and Ireland, these are exceptions. But by and large, the world is run by gangsters and special interest groups. And you will not change them. You will not change them. That's why we have now created this blockchain, and we're going to create a cryptocurrency, and Poonacha can talk more about that, where we democratize globally the new voices of your generation. My generation, I've given up. I mean, you know, they say paradigm changes occur one funeral at a time. So we have to wait for a lot of funerals before the paradigm shift occurs. But with your help and a new demographic, we can create an ecosystem that is independent of these lobbyists, special interest groups, all of that. We have to do it. That's where the new blockchain technologies, the new cryptocurrencies, ultimately, I predict, if we go the right route, we will not have these special interest groups. Even Wall Street and corporate special interest groups, all they care about is right now their profits. And it doesn't matter if it's at the cost of life. So we can't depend on that. We have to be the change we want to see in the world. That's the only way. And blockchain and cryptocurrency might be the solution. Poonacha, maybe you can say a few words about it.
I think one of the things, I think Deepak just leaned to what you said, our whole campaign around love in action, right? So Rob, to your point, how can doing good and doing well go together, right? If you're doing all these things and upcycling, you're really leading this quality of life, you are intrinsically motivated. But a lot of people are extrinsically motivated. So I think what we are trying to look at is, can we create a currency for well-being, right? So if you're a yoga teacher, you know, doing free yoga classes for students in a park, what if the Coursera Udemy gives you free online classes based on that token of called love in action? So we believe that you cannot go back and fight the old economy with the old currency, but what if we can create a currency of well-being, where doing well and doing good is being rewarded? And this is really what we have embarked on. Our partnership with Hedera, Hashgraph on blockchain is for us to create a token called Love in Action, where anybody can come in and the community rewards what that fair value in exchange is. And now you can go redeem that action. So you can be teaching yoga classes, or you could be a school teacher teaching children, or you could be, you know, a chef, right?
I think it's absolutely amazing idea, and it strikes a real chord. You say you can't fight the old world with their currency. Yeah. I think it's
we got to change the game. We got to change, you know, we have to kind of literally, the world is no longer about competition. We don't need competition. We need co-opetition. We need shared values, shared economy. And we really have to think how this whole world of virtualization is going to come together. And I think there's an opportunity for all of us to kind of rethink the new world.
That's beautiful. I love this. I know we're running short on time, and I want to respect everyone's time and Deepak's time. But I think the audience at Difficult Dialogues, the youth in India, will be very inspired. The youth in UK and whoever's going to watch this is definitely going to think about the narration of their own self. You know, maybe they're going to look at the world differently, and we're going to be triggered by this conversation, because I think there's so many treasures, and we're all human explorers. I love this, you know, the image of being a human explorer. We all have our relevance. We all are unique, and we all need to be appreciated and find and experience self-appreciation as well. And to do that, we need to be love in action, which is actually our new campaign for Never Alone. And I think the more we become love in action, effortlessly, without thinking too much, and knowing that we're reframing and recreating a new world together with these communities that are offline, then we become stronger than the old paradigm. Because the old paradigm, Deepak would mention it, it's just the memory of the past, but it's actually not here. If we want it to not be here, it's not here. The only moment is the presence of our being. So how do we activate the presence of our being into a new world that we're co-creating together for the betterment of, for our mental health, but also our planetary health, as we've discussed? That's just one. So I hope everyone enjoyed our guests. It was, it's just so great to be able to have that emergence, you know, the emergence that Deepak was talking about, like how different worlds come together and they find a solution. And I think more than finding a solution, it's being the solution, being the embodiment of the solution. That's why I love Difficult Dialogues so much, because you are all incredible activists that are on the path of being. And I also wanted to thank TVE as well, because they're taking the path of being into storytelling and inspiring all the others to become a new story. So I think it's up to us, after, you know, listening and being in the panel, and I'm sure you agree with me, that it's up to us. That it's up to us to realize that we actually have more power than we think we have. And when I say power, it's we have more self-assessment, that we have more possibilities to actually be the activator of change, whether it's inner change, outer change. I think it all starts with us. And effectively, you know, there are many great artists and philosophers who have always said, you know, you have to be that change. Obviously Gandhi, but I think ultimately you have to embody it in every single action, behind the cameras, not in front of people, just in your own being. So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, we will follow up. You can, you know, on our social media, whether it's Difficult Dialogues, whether it's Never Alone, whether it's TVE. Be inspired, continue to do what you do, and just reach out to us. And if there are any questions that I can answer right now, I can. But if there are not, I wish you well. And I feel that we're on this beautiful, beautiful journey together. And I look forward to all of the films on the other side that are getting submitted to TV, and to watch the film awards in November. So thank you very much. We will answer your questions after, and just connect with us. And thank you to the organizers of this panel, because I truly enjoyed it. So thank you, Serena. And thank you, great team at Difficult Dialogues, and great TV, and it's fabulous. So be well, and let's go change the world.